So like that's a little bit of an unusual type of question to be asked. So I might as well. I'll turn the recording on anyway. Video. This is not a private story. So what happened is so when he's there, he's asking her, "Why do you need a jewelry box?" So he said, "Because I'm about to get engaged, and I need something to put the ring in." So he says, "Let me tell you how the shidduch came to be. I live in Vancouver, and I was on my way to Europe, and I had a little bit of a layover in Toronto, and I was a little hungry. So I figured I'll come into the city, and I'll get myself something to eat. So I find myself in Metro, and the guy in front of me is swiping his credit card to pay for his groceries, and it's being declined. It's very humiliating for somebody in line to go through that. So I right away gave him my card to just run my card. It was only $30 or so. And the guy, of course, was hesitant, but he says, big deal, don't worry. And after he did it, the guy said, let me pay you in cash. He said, no, it's not a big deal. You don't have to pay me back. Everything's fine. In this conversation, there was a lady behind him who said, hey, I never saw you before around here. Who are you and what are you? And then she says, you know what? I have a shidduch for you. And the next thing you know, he got engaged. It's not, you pay for one guy's groceries, it can take you down. Finished. So we were waiting for the shidduch to be announced. It was announced last night. Mazel tov. I'm so happy. I wish Avigdor would have announced it on our group. So mazel tov to Avigdor. Very, very nice. So do we know the boy's name?
Resnick, something like that. Yaakov, Yaakov, something like that.
Okay, excellent. Oh, mazel tov, beautiful. Also, he took him to Mincha to introduce him to the primary meeting here. We had a shul board meeting before Mincha, so I had to go to my alternate meeting in the good. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we should hear Simchas. A video has $2 in the market. I'm going to assume it would be the older one. Very nice. Baruch Hashem. Should have many Simchas. Okay, Gavaldik. It's good I said over the story because otherwise we would have never heard that she was engaged already. That you were able to share, so that's the good news. Gavaldik. Okay. Hayoim, Esrim Yoim, Shehem, Shnei Shavuos, V'Shisha Yomim Laomer. And today is Iyar, right? Gimel Shabbos. Today's Iyar. Okay. Zok Tehelig Gemara. We are all the way at the bottom of Ayin Dalet on Beis, and we're closing in on the end of Ezel Neshach. Tanu Rabbanan. Omer Adam Lechaveiroi. Someone's allowed to tell his friend, Hilveni Kur Chitin. Lend me a kur of Chitin. The Koitzitz Loidomim. But they say, you're not allowed to do saw b'saw, but what we could do is, the kur Chitin that I'm borrowing from you now is valued at $100. I will pay you back $100. So the loch is huzlu, if it went down in value, noisin lechitin. So now the chitin are only worth $75. He's allowed to give him back chitin for $75. Hukru, if it went up, noisin demem, you pay the $100. Frank the Gemara, how is it possible that you're allowed to pay him back only $75 worth of chitin if you made up that you're going to be owing him $100? This is what it means. If you didn't specify the amount of money that the loan would be, then hozlu noitel chitov. Then if it goes down, you can give him back the chitin as is. If it was hukru, you can't give back chitin because you took $100 worth of chitin, and you're not allowed to give back $125 worth of chitin. So therefore, nois and demem, you'll just give back $100. But if it's cuts, then regardless, you give him back $100. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. This is the last Mishnah. I shouldn't say that, especially since there's a Mishnah right at the bottom of Amud. This is the second last Mishnah of Ezel Neshach. Loi yoymar adam lechaveiroi. A person should not tell his friend, "Halveni kur chitin." You lend me a kur of chitin, v'ani etein lach legoyin, and I will pay you back once my goyin is complete. Once I have my new crop, I will pay you back. That is not allowed to be done. That's a classic case of saw b'saw. Aval, Omerlo, you are allowed to tell him, Hilveni achiyavoy b'ni. If my son has, or if I have wheat where my son is, and he's going to bring it to me, which means as I'm borrowing it from you, I actually have in my possession wheat. I just can't access it yet. That wouldn't be saw b'saw because it looks as if we're just doing a trade. as Rashi says, the kivin the yesh shabar dami. Since he has, we're not concerned. The hasa b'sa d'rabbanan. The whole problem of sabasa is not really a deraisa. It's only ribis d'rabbanan. The lav najach deraisa. It's not really nashach. Therefore, v'chiyash le gazer. If he has in his possession, they were not gazer to prohibit that. Or let's say he has, but he lost the key to his warehouse, and he has to find it. He has got to get a locksmith. But for Hillel loiser, Hillel is machmer when it comes to these halachas of ribis, and he'll prohibit this. The chein haya Hillel in another area. Let's say I need a loaf of bread. I'm not allowed to ask my neighbor, can I borrow a loaf of bread, and then pay back a loaf of bread the next day. You have to say, can I borrow a loaf of bread, and it's going to be $6. And that's all you're allowed to give back. Why? What if the loaf of bread goes up to $6.50, and if you're giving back a loaf of bread that's worth more than the loaf of bread that you received, that is the sheet of Hillel. We're going to see that we are not machmer like that. Amar Rav Huna said, Yesh lo isa. The Mishnah tells us, not according to Hillel, that if you have in your possession, whatever you have in your possession, you're allowed to borrow that amount, because we don't look at it like it's b'sa, rather we look at it like it's a shtickle swap. So Amar Rav Huna, Yesh lo isa, lo v'sa. So saim, lo v'sa. Whatever you have, that's how much you're allowed to borrow. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer, afilu yesh lo isa, lo v'alel kama kurim. If you have one saw, you cannot borrow an unlimited amount. Tanya Rab Chia l'siyuye Rab Yitzchak. Rab Chia has a brisa that supports Rab Yitzchak, because it says tipis yain einlon. When the Mishnah says you're not allowed to lend out wine and then be paid back in wine, it says the loiva doesn't have a tipa of yain. Now, who is borrowing a tipa of yain? Nobody. You want to borrow a bottle of wine. So therefore, when the Mishnah says if the loiva has a tipa of yain, he could borrow, pashas, it means he could borrow a whole bottle. So you see that as long as you have some inventory, you're allowed to borrow an unlimited amount against it. Tipa yain ein loy or tipa shemen ein loy. Hayesh lo, if he has even the smallest drop, lo v'ala kama tipa. How does this work? Why does this work? Zok Rashi, kama kurin. Every single amount that he borrows will say, oh, it's connected to one that he has. It technically does not belong to the malva, the one that he has. He could still eat it or sell it. Therefore, he can use that to borrow against. The one that he borrowed will be niskekes al perish b'shuk. He'll pay back with some other perish. V'zu penuya l'lav shalal, and the one that he has, he can use again and again and again. And therefore, uchashalova kolachas v'achas lova beheter. Each one was lova beheter. Okay, the ha'ilu lova so achas v'achla gama rishayna. If he already ate both of them, ha'il kishalova beheter lova yishalem chit. Even if you ate both up, well, at the time of the halva, you had it, and therefore it was not prohibited to drabanan. That is how Rashi learns. But that takes us to an interesting question, which Tosfos speaks out from the Rivan. So the third line on Tosfos, the Rivan says, so first Tosfos says, V'nira the hashta kaimalon to Rabbi Yitzchak. We hold like Rabbi Yitzchak. The Rivan Pirish, the biyachad en yochal lahalvis. Yes, you can use the same core of chitin or sof chitin over and over again, but that means you have to have each individual transaction to match what he had. But you can't borrow 10 kurin if he only has one core. That Rabbi Yitzchak told us that if you have one saw, lav kama kurin, but that means one saw at a time. The Rivan does agree that even though technically he's handing over the mass of wheat in one shot, he's not literally separating it into individual containers, but he says v'yomer kni v'zacher zeh shori. So it's all semantics as to how he describes how he wants the transaction to work.
It's just the Iyar that makes the difference.
It's just because of how he expresses it. The b'davar lach mistama shoyfech b'yachad v'shori kamatipet. maybe with wheat you're shoveling out one spoon at a time. But when you're pouring somebody, you're not giving him with an eyedropper one drop at a time. You're just dumping the whole thing in. Umiunir Tesis argues on this. Dein tzarich l'daktek elakech harbe b'vasachas l'Reb Yitzchak. The oisha tipa yochel lios connected kol tipa v'tipa. So Tesis argues in this makel. You don't have to be so technical and say it's one at a time. Once you have one, the Rabbanan suspended the gzeira of saw b'saw. Gewaltig. Zogt Gemara weiter. Hillel is machber. So Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel, halacha gedivrei Hillel. So Hillel we always pass like Shmuel. We know the halacha is like Shmuel when it comes to din, and Rav Nachman we also pass like a din. So we have a serious roster of Talmidei Chachamim passing this way. And what does the Gemara go with one bishop? But let's forget Shmuel, forget Rav Nachman, forget Hillel. We don't pass like any of them. We are going to be mekel. We are going to allow this. So this actually opens up a very interesting shaila, because the question is first of all, why? If Shmuel passes like this, or Nachman passes and Hillel passes like this, why would you give a bishop? The teretz is, the simplest teretz is, the kololei hashas, that the halacha is like Shmuel, or the halacha is like Rav, or Rav Nachman, or the halacha is like Hillel, that's when the Gemara doesn't paskin. When the Gemara doesn't paskin, the kololei hashas is you follow Rav Nachman, you follow Shmuel. However, when the Gemara passes beferish, for instance, we normally pass like Rava, but by Yal Kagam, so the Gemara tells you beferish that those rules of Shas don't apply. But what brings up a little interesting shaila, which comes up a lot, is the halacha is like Shmuel Idin, but the halacha is like Rav when it comes to Isser v'Heter. Ribbis, is that a shaila of Isser v'Heter, or is that a shaila of Yeridea? So where do you find Hilchos Ribbis in the Shulchan Aruch? You find it in Yeridea. So it's Isser v'Heter Dikashayla. On the other hand, where is it found in the Gemara, in the Mishnais, in Chelik Nezikin? Where they're dinim ominous, in the Rambam and Hilchos Malva. We interrupt this broadcast for an important announcement. Avigdor, we all want to wish you a heartzik of Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov, Avigdor.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, last night. Now, I'm sorry. The night where it was most important to daven at 62 Sultana, from that night I had to daven at my alternative minyan. She's allowed to Yiddish Anachas. I will tell you a video. I actually saw it on your face the last couple of days. So Baruch Hashem, she have a lot of Yiddish Anachas. His daughter became a color. The husband's name is Yaakov Resnick.
That's right. Yeah.
Very nice.
He's a printer?
No, he doesn't live in Toronto. Where does your son live? In Vancouver?
He's from Vancouver. He's living in Yerushalayim.
Ah, beautiful. Very nice. Okay, now if you can have more reason to have to go visit Yerushalayim. The college in Toronto. This should have happened here. Okay, Gavalti, Shalati Yiddish Anachas.
And on YouTube.
And it should be like, oh, no, it's like, now you're a YouTube star. That's right. And the way it works is it's like a pickle jar. And the first pickle is the hardest to get out. Once you get out the first pickle, the other ones are so much easier to remove. Okay, Zok to Gemara weiter.
I'm sure the girls will love that analogy.
So Hill had another halacha where he was machmer. You're not even allowed to borrow bread to negative bread. Oh, we were actually in the middle of talking about if it's Yeridea or if it's Choshe Mishpat, right? So you find interesting halachas. It goes back and forth. So in fact, there is a little bit of a shaila, because in the last shach, Rabbi Rasa spoke out, in the last shach, in Hilchos Ribbis, there's a following shaila. We know the halacha is Ribbis Ketzutza Yosy B'dayonim. If someone violates a Ribbis Daraisa and he followed all the rules to be over Ribbis, he has to give it back. Ribbis Darabanan, you don't give back. So what if there was a shaila if Ribbis happened, and there's a shaila if it's Ribbis Daraisa or if it's Ribbis Darabanan? If it has a din of Choshe Mishpat, then Hamoiti Mechaver Al Varaya. You don't have to give it. But if it has a din of Yeridea, Safek Yisrael L'Chumra. So how do you deal with it? So there's a whole discussion about it, and there's actually a Machlokes Achronim how this should be treated. You know, in really every case of Lo Sigzol is a Safek Deraisa, because yes, it's din ominous, but if it's not yours, come to Choshe you're over alav also. It could be the Hilchas Nizokin paskins whether or not it's an isser, and since I'm right, not an isser, but that's a very big shaila. Is this considered yoredeya? Is it considered isser v'heter, or is it a din of safek l'rayis l'chumra, or is it a din of choshe mishpat where you say amochi mechaver alavaraya? But on the side that it's yoredeya, makes sense why we're not passing Rab Nachman or Shmuel. Yeah, it comes up a lot. These are the words of Hill who are machmer. Love him stam, upayim stam. On smaller items, you're allowed to just borrow and pay back without making all these conditions. Zokt Rashi, lovin kikre stam, but like kitzitzas damim. Just borrow a piece of loaf of bread. You don't have to worry exactly on how much it's worth. The word machmer so much on saw b'saw. So a loaf of bread for a loaf of bread you're allowed to do. So it's a little bit fuzzy. What are you allowed to do and what aren't you allowed to do? So the Shulchan Aruch paskins, the Ramah paskins, that I'm allowed to borrow a silver coin from you and pay you back a silver coin. Even though it's possible that the price of silver will change a little bit in between my borrowing and my paying back, people are mocked. That's the lotion of the Ramah.
Like, you're in the airport, sugar. You're not really expecting them.
Well, so this is exactly what I want to discuss. I exactly want to address exactly this. How does that work? So you're saying really it's a gift because you don't care if he pays back when he pays back. Okay, that's very interesting story.
Right. Drop off,
The Gemara is going to talk about exactly those people too. The Gemara deals with those people too. The Gemara has everything into account. I love it how you anticipate the different types of people, but the Gemara actually discusses them. So Rav Moshe has a very interesting thought on it. When it should be allowed and when it's not allowed. So Rav Moshe says, because Rav Moshe asked, Vos Epis, the Gemara says, the Ramah when he passed and said on a davar muat, like kesef, we're not makbid. Why does the Ramah have to give an example? So Rav Moshe holds that it all depends. When I'm borrowing a loaf of bread from you, am I b'chalal thinking about the value of money, how much I borrowed from you? No, I need a loaf of bread. Don't pay back a loaf of bread. So Rav Moshe says, if what you're borrowing, giving back was like eggs, like bread, where you don't even think about money, right? If I borrow from you 10 saw of wheat, like I need inventory, that's money already. I'm borrowing you to focus, or there's at least enough of a focus on the value of the product that I'm borrowing and selling. But if it's something I need for a household item, very effing geld. We're just worried about I need also a household item. And therefore, there would be no problem whatsoever. That's how Rav Moshe paskins. That's how Rav Moshe paskins. I'm not sure if it's crossword, but where it is a concern, if you borrow a half a bottle of ketchup from somebody, and you're not a nudnik, you're not going to buy another bottle and use up half and then give it. You're not going to give an open bottle of booze, right? So are you allowed to give back a whole bottle of ketchup? That's a very big shiloh. It's not so poshut that you are allowed to do that. Not so poshut you are allowed to do that. But if you're borrowing a whole bottle or a whole loaf, that's for sure not a problem because it's not money we're looking for. You're looking for the item. That's where Moshe categorized.
Over no-frills.
Well, no, because all you have to do is take the no-frill check and put it into a Heinz bottle, and that's the same thing. Okay. Zog the Gemara weiter. V'amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Fadem dafin is a kind of no-frills. V'amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. V'nei chabura hamakpidin zelza. So now the Gemara discusses Duvi. What if there's a group of guys that are all yekis, and they're all sitting and having a meal together for Yom Tov? So one guy says, "Can I have a piece of your chicken?" I say, "Sure, but one moment, please. Let me wait to see exactly how much it weighs. I need to know how much you have to pay me back." And then the other guy says, "Can I have some beblech?" Sure, but count them out so I know how many beblech you're going to pay me back. So when you're dealing with such people who are so makbid on each other, they shouldn't really be eating together on Shabbos and Yom Tov because it's going to violate many isurim. They're going to be over on measurements because you're not allowed to do measurements. You're not allowed to measure things on Shabbos and Yom Tov. And they're going to be measuring everything in detail because they expect to be paid back.
On this halukha, mid is length,
right?
and
Mishkal is weight. That's right. Midah is length, Mishmishkal is weight. In terms of examples, if the guy wants a fish, you don't measure how long the fish is, and that's how long the fish you got to pay him back. And mishkal is weight. Umishaminion, you took 6 bablach from me, I want my 6 bablach back. So they'll be over because they're doing all of these measurements, and the issue to do all these measurements is because we're afraid it might come to ksiva. And also, it's not that I'm giving you a matana like Dubi says. When I'm giving you an egg, I don't expect you to pay it back. It's a gift. So when people are eating together, that's how normal people perceive it. But these nudniks who are so makar on everything, it's literally a loan because I expect that you're going to give me back my 6 beblach and my 3/4 my 3 ounces of chicken. So therefore, they're also overall slow in apartment, which Rashi says is also usher because it can come to ksiva b'yamtiv. And according to Hill, if you're so makar on everything, so if you end up giving back an extra ounce, it'll be a problem with ribbis as well. But if you're not makar, it's like a gift, like the Dubi said. A Talmud Chacham is allowed to borrow money and lend money for ribbis. My timer made the yadi the ribbis asur. Talmud Chacham knows that ribbis is asur. So how will they structure the deal? They'll say, no, I'm paying you back what you lent me. This I like you, so I'm giving you back a matan. So this Gemara is very, very difficult because who doesn't know that ribbis is also? So anybody can structure it. Who did forget principle? We have an idea. Tell matana. Oh, so the Shita Metzia brings down that this is not just any old Talmud Chacham. This is someone who's on such a high madrega that he has such an incredible love for every Yid that he wants to give him a gift and he could really know from his heart of hearts that I'm not just using it as a loophole and I'm giving it, you have to give it the ribbis, so I'm saying it's a matana. No, this is really a matana. Very, very few people could say, and that's why the Gemara doesn't give an example of who qualifies for this heter. Okay. So yeah, so according to the sheet, it's very clear that this is not a heter that anybody can use. Only a very holy Eden could use such a heter.
Yeah, but in Yosy, the Malva is also such a tzaddik. He doesn't even really want the money back either. He's giving the halva as a matana too.
Yes, it has to be both ways. Exactly. Omer le Shmuel. So when you find those two people who are so holy and they got together for a deal, I don't know. Usually those guys don't need to borrow because their congregation are shtitzing them anyway. It's like a Rebbe Shemaisa. You know the Rebbe. Someone told me a very short Rebbe Shemaisa. You want to hear a very short Rebbe Shemaisa? A Rebbe Sheinikal came over to a Gvir and he asked him if he could borrow $100,000, and he lent him the money. And that was the end of the story. See, it's a very short Rebbe Shemaisa, so there's never a problem with this. Over le Shmuel Lavua Barhini. Shmuel told Avu Barhini, Hilveni mea palpalim. Please lend me 100 palpalim. The mea version palpalim. So now we've identified who's on that madrega that could take advantage of this structure of matana. Shmuel and Avu Barhini. And it was fine. That works fine. And this highlights what Akiva is saying. Because the Gemara didn't just say that Shmuel, the loiva, said it, because it's not enough that the loiva should be on that madrega. We have to identify who the malva is as well, Lavu Barhini, because he has to be also be someone who could tell too that he's lending the money without any expectation of interest, and it's clearly a gift. Amar Vidu Amarav, Mutter Loy Adam. Again, this is also a very shver Gemara. Mutter Loy Adam lahalvois banav uvnevesei beribos. You're allowed to lend money to your children and charge them ribbis. You know why? Kedei lahatim on tam ribbis. So they should pay ribbis. They should be repulsed by it and bothered by it. It's painful to give ribbis, and then they'll see what it feels like, so they won't ever do it. But for Lav Milsi, it's not a good idea. They might be repulsed by it, but then they say, you know what? It's not such a bad idea afterwards. And now you're giving them ideas and you're putting ideas into their head. Like I never heard of such a zach that you're allowed to do over an Isser Dairaisa to teach to be mechanech kids, so it's a little bit difficult. The Rambam actually learns the Kumar Punfakir. You're allowed to borrow from your children and pay them ribbons. Why will you be allowed to do that? The Rambam, sometimes kids can have a wild streak, so let them go through their wild streak, let them get it out of their system, and then they'll come back. Shavarazu says, unfortunately, a lot of people go through wild streaks, and we down for them, they come back at the end. But they push them on the wild streak, just for staying. Zok to Gemara. A person could tell his friend, Lachesh imi, I'd like you to pull weeds. Not actually to pull weeds. You pull weeds with me today because I got to weed my field. And where I live, they also are cooks and they don't allow us to use pesticide. So we have to pull out the weeds by hand. And tomorrow I will work with you in your field and I'll pull the weeds from your field. Or adar imi, or dig some trenches. I think I don't mean to dig. Chafar Rashi says, adar imcha, and I will help you. That you're allowed to do.
Around the tree.
Just like trenches, yeah. But we can't say you do the malach of pulling weeds with me, and I'll do the malach of digging with you, because one is much harder than the other, and then it's not a shava b'shav. Or adar imi v'anachishim. So it has to be equal. I'm not sure how much. What if my field is a drop bigger than your field? I'm not sure. Could be that would be allowed because you're not discussing it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay. Zogt the Gemara weiter. Kol yemei grid echad. Grid is the summertime where the soil is much harder, and therefore the malacha done in the summer, it doesn't make a difference if it's a week earlier or work later. It's basically the same amount of effort. Kol yemei revia achas, during the rainy season when it's muddy, there it's much harder to do any type of work. So therefore, you wouldn't be able to say, I'll work with you in the summer and you work with me in the winter. That wouldn't be allowed. But if you work with me in the winter or the summer, I'm allowed to work with you back in those same respective times. Because one is much harder than the other. Besides the standard ribbis, it's also possible to pre-pay ribbis and to post-pay ribbis, which would be prohibited. Ketat. I know I want to borrow from Yankel $100,000. So what do? I send him a beautiful, beautiful bottle of brofen because I love you. You know why when he opens up the card, he's not subtle. You know why I sent you this bottle of brofen? Because I'm planning to borrow money from you. That probably wouldn't work anyway. You're supposed to say we're such good friends and I love you, and that's what I'm sending you. Oh, if I have you on the phone anyway, can I borrow money from you? So the problem is, there's a whole shaila if it's only a problem if he speaks it out, or could be it's even a problem if he doesn't speak it out. To shaila, zui ribos mukdemis. That would be called ribos mukdemis. How about the other case? Loving menu. That's what myself. I borrowed money and I paid back, and after I'm fully paid, he sends him a bottle of brofen for Yom Tov, for Shabbos, and he says, since you lent me money and you couldn't make profit off your money, I want to give you a bottle of brofen. Zui ribis mucheres, that would also be prohibited. That is ribis mucheres. Shimon says, yesh ribis tvarim. It's even possible to have ribis, even if you don't give him anything other than kind words. Don't tell him, let's say he needs to meet somebody. He's looking to meet somebody because of business, or he wants to go get a bruch my Rebbe, and he finds out that the Rebbe is coming to town very quiet, and he tells him, he's coming to town, he's going to be staying over there, so you're giving him privileged information as a payment for a loan. That is also it's ribis tavorim. And this is where the shaila comes up, to what extent are you allowed to say thank you when someone gives you a loan? So I asked Rabbi Lowy last night, if someone gives me a loan, am I allowed to give him a Misha Berach? So Rabbi Lowy says, you're not allowed to. He asked me, do you stamazoi give him Misha Berachs? You have friends who give Misha Berachs, so do you stamazoi give Misha Berachs? I said, no. So you're not allowed to give him Misha Berach. So Rabbi Moshe is particularly machmir when it comes to these types of things. Ribis Tavarim. You're not even allowed to say, if there's a guy you pass every day and you don't say good morning to him, and then suddenly he lends you money, now you say good morning to him, that would also not be allowed. If it's a normal thing that you say good morning to each other, then you don't have to stop saying good morning because there's a loan involved. But you're not allowed to take any additional action. You're not allowed to take any additional action if it's only because of the loan. So there was actually a shaila. Somebody wanted to print a sefer, and of course he needed to borrow a lot of money to be able to print a sefer. So right at the beginning, on the first page of the Sefer, he says, I want to thank Moshe Pipik very much, because without his loan, I'd never have been able to print the Sefer. That's 100% also, because you're thanking him and you're benching him. But what you're allowed to write is Hakadosh Baruch Hu should bench this guy because he was mazaken Rabbim by paying for it. So you're not allowed to yourself thank him, but you're allowed to make a statement that this is what he did, and the Hakadosh Baruch Hu should thank him. So if someone gives you a loan, are you allowed to say shkoyach? You're allowed to say thank you. God gives you a loan, you say thank you. So most posts can hold, of course, you're allowed to say thank you, because thank you isn't. When you say thank you, you're not really giving him anything. It's like what Rav Vendel used to say. In America, jeder sagt Amsari. Was meant Amsari? Amsari meant go to hell, right? That's what Rav Vendel used to say. So thank you, it's a big gezok. So, but a bracha like Yasher Koyach is really a bracha. So most people say shkoyach. It's just a term that wouldn't be a problem. But what if a guy, whenever he ventures somebody else, he says Yasher Koyach? He knows he has kavon exactly to give you a bracha. That would not be allowed. Okay, so more about it.
Yosy, does the time stop after Shemitah? Then you can start saying thank you to him. In other words, you pay him back, and then what? For the next 6 months, you can't say thank you, or does Shemitah stop it, and then eventually you could say thank you to him?
Oh, I'm not sure when the no thank you will when it expires. That's a good point. At what point can you start saying thank you again? I'm not sure. Well, let's put it this way: if the Malva is still talking to the Loiva at that point, maybe he's allowed to say.
On the anniversary of the pay.
Okay, depends if it's before some Chazayr or after some Chazayr.
Is that the parish that Ribbis Mechedes is not allowed?
That's right.
So thank you for this.
That's right. That's right.
If you're not allowed to say thank you,
You could say thank you, but not for that. You can't say thank you for that because that's still related to that loan. I hear.
No, yet as a Moshe maybe also thank you.
Right. Thank you. The gift of words. Thank you is not a brucha. It's just an acknowledgement. Right. If you say just a zanga bench because you gave me a loan, that he wouldn't allow. Thank you is allowed because thank you means go to hell, like Rav Bentley used to say. Zok to more fighter. But el oivrim v'loy sase. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. El oivrim v'loy sase. The following are over Elisha. So what's unique about the ribbis is that anybody who's involved here is going to be tainted with the law. Hamalva, that's pretty obvious. Via loiva, via arav, the arav as well, the cosigner. Via edim and the edim. The chachamim oimim afas soifer oivrim mishum loisitein. And we're going to see not everybody is over all of these affairs. The Gemara is going to say who's over what. Mishum loisitein, you're not allowed to give kesef for ribbis, umishum al tikach mi itoi, it's talking about the malva, umishum loisia lo kenoisha, which is also going on the malva, umishum v'loisa simun alav neshech, which everybody would be involved with. Everyone caused this person to have neshech, umishum v'lifnei iver loisitin michsho v'yireishim alakecha ani Hashem. So then there's a shayla lifnei iver. What if I'm the loiver, so I'll be over by giving ribbis to the malva, right? Because I'm machshel him in receiving ribbis. And so maybe he's over lifneiver for being machshel me in lifneiver. So it doesn't work that way. So there's actually a big shaila lifneiver. When someone's over lifneiver l'shita michshel, do we say that he's over an independent lav of lifneiver, and then maybe it would go back and forth like two mirrors facing each other, or does lifneiver mean you have a chelik of his avera? If the loiva gives the malva ribbis, the loiva is also over a shtickle of the malva's affair. There are those who learn it that way, and then it couldn't mirror itself back and forth.
That should learn something else.
That's later in the Gemara. You're not up to that. That's not this. That's not this lifneiver. That will be relevant a little bit later in the Gemara. Okay, so these are all the halachas of the lifneiver. Now, there's a very interesting shaila. We learned that anything other than ribbis da'iraisa, only the malvas chayiv for, right? All of these lavin apply by ribbis da'iraisa. By ribbis da'iraisa, we had a raya earlier that only the malvas chayiv on ribbis da'iraisa. However, that would only be when we're talking about actually paying money. But by ribbis devorim, where the loiva is saying thank you, there the issue would be on the loiva Zok the Gemara weiter. Tanya Rab Shimon ben Yochi Laomer. Minayin l'noisha b'chaveri mana. The ain't rogal lahaktim lo shalom, and he normally doesn't say shalom to him. So also lahaktim lo shalom. Tamad Laomer neshech kol davar asher yishach afilu dibur aser. Even dibur could be aser due to the isser from this. Ve'eloivin. Who are the list of the people who are over lavin that are involved in this ribis transaction? Amar Abaye, malva over b'chu. The malva is over in every one of the lavin on this list. And Rashi itemizes them. We won't go through everything, but we'll look at this Rashi. B'chol hani the choshev b'masnisa. The who noited b'neshech b'shas avo. So that's the first thing he's doing. V'hu loikeach b'shas pirayin. He's taking ribs b'shas pirayin. V'hu loikenosha. He's also a noisha kisha toivay v'doichai. When he's pressuring him to collect. Who some love neshech b'shas pisuk haknai, and when they create the terms of the loan, he's putting on neshech on the loiva, and v'noishel michshor l'fnei loiva lahaviroi al loisashich lachicha shu asar loiva. The loisashich is an asar loiva, but the malva is making the loiva be over. Okay, zok to Gemara weiter. So malva over b'kulan loiva over b'shum loisashich lachicha ulachicha loisashich. And the lifnei iver loishita michsha. The Arav and the Eidim ain't over Ella mishum loishisimun olav neshech. Why are they not over on lifnei iver loishita michsha? So Tosha says it depends. If there's no way they could have accomplished this loan without the input of the Arav and the Eidim, yes, then they'll be over lifnei iver as well. But if they could have found anybody else, there we don't say you're over lifnei iver. You're only over lifnei iver ka'en if someone wants to eat a davar aser. And the Dover also is on the other side of the river, and I passed him. So I'm the person who facilitated. He couldn't have accomplished this Aveira in any other way. But if it's not such a situation, there would not be an Isser of Lefnei. Tanya Rab Shimon Omer, Malvi Ribis, Yosy Mashem Ervichim Mafsidim. They think they're making money. They're making 5%, 10%, 3%. They're actually losing instantly more than they're making. Of course, because Minashamayim, they take it away. Ella Shema Simin Moshe Rabbeinu Chacham v'Teirasay Emes, which is of course Lashon Shakinor. They're making a collector out of Moshe and out of the Torah. And they say, Ilu Hayodea Moshe Rabbeinu Sheyirevach v'Davar. If Moshe Rabbeinu would have known how profitable you could be by lending money, Lo Haya Koshva, he would have never written it. And there was a Torah Versteitnis. The Torah Versteitnis business. They don't understand. Ich weiß besser. So the Chassam Sofer has a very interesting point over here.
Is also only for the bunch.
But they don't have the chutzpah to say that. So the very interesting point. Normally, we know if you do an Aveira, a person should always choshev the schar of Seder, the schar of the Aveira connected to Seder. In other words, you're not going to get ahead. If you're going to make your money through Isser, you're going to be on a treadmill. You're going to be spinning your wheels. You're not going to be getting anywhere. But that's not what it says over here. Here it says, why do you lose more than that there? The Torah says, it's mida connected mida. You also wanted more than you gave. So when the Hashem gives you the Einish, he charges you interest on the Avera too. This is a courtesy of Rabbi Shmuel Bernstein, the Shmuel Bernstein, read by it. It's a Gemara Shtickle. He also Rabdimi Amar minayin l'noishe b'chaveri mona v'yoidea she'ein lo. So Asher Laver Lefon, you know he owes you money. You know he doesn't have the money. You're not allowed to make a demand from him if he doesn't have the money, but you're not even allowed to walk by him so he should see you, and it'll be uncomfortable because they'll feel that pressure. Talmud Laomer, you're not a lot of pressure. Rab Ami Rabasi, Damri Tavayu, Kiludanu B'Shnei Dinim. If someone pressures a loiva who he knows can't pay him, it's like he hurt him with two different dinim, with two different condemnations. Shenemar says in the pasuk here, Kafta Enosh L'Reishenu. You make people rod on their head, but Enosh we're darshan here is Milosha Noisha. They're squeezing us for money. We feel like we came through fire and water, so we suffered two separate punishments. And this is what Chaim Ophir was referring to earlier. If you have money and you lend it out without Eidim, which means now if he decides that he's not going to pay you back because you have no proof, you have no way to collect from him, you're over mishum v'lifnei iver l'shita michshel. Why? Zokt Rashi, this is what Chaim was referring to before. L'fnei iver Zokt Rashi, sha'oila al ruchla shaloiva likbar. The loiva might consider denying that there was a loan because there was no proof. Don't put somebody into such a position. It causes you to be cursed. The malva will ultimately get cursed out of it. Why? Shenemar te'alam nesfosai sheker hadoivros al tzadik osok. Unless it's like you sing, it's really a gift, right? And they don't even expect it that, right? That's why a lot of people, when they let out money, they ask for a receipt because they're not even expecting it back, right? So, what does it say over here? Let me see Rashi. Is there Rashi on this pasuk? No, there's no Rashi. But so the way we touch the pasuk, my mouth became quiet. I couldn't speak. Sheker. Hadoivus al tzaddik osok. They're speaking on the tzaddik, and osok is verteidigt. Osok is verteidigt. I believe I thought I saw a Rashi over here on osok. Oh, here it is. Klala kishatoivai. V'zeh koifer. When you're going to be tovei this guy, and he's going to be koifer, the guy you're being tovei might be a big rav, it might be a big talmid chacham, and you're being tovei him, and he's denying it. So Makal Moshe, they can curse the Malva, Vayim Shu Dover al Tzaddik Osok. You're speaking lies, you're speaking slander against the Tzaddik. You're moaning for money, he doesn't remember. So he's for sure right, and you're for sure wrong. So you're a Malva, you're a Russia, people are going to curse you over. So that's what it means. So Dover al Tzaddik, they're speaking ill against the Tzaddik, and they're bad mouthing him. Really, it's legit. You lent him the money, but he forgot. So that's why you're Goyim Klo Atzmacha if you lend money without a star. There's a famous story with Rashash, but we'll go back. Amalei Rabban and Ravashi. Rabban told Ravashi, "Kamakayim Ravina. Ravina is such a holy man. He's Mekayim Kol Ma the Amar Rabban. Whatever the Rabbanan tell him to do, he does. He sticks to every halacha. So Ravashi says, let me see. Let me test him. Sholach le'ba de pani de malashapsa. He sent a half hour, an hour before Shabbos. He sent an emergency message to Ravina. Lishter limar asara zuze. Please, right away, quickly send me 10 zuz. I need to borrow from you. This Ramili Katida Dara, I found a bargain on a piece of property that if I don't buy it right now, I'm going to lose out. Send me the money quickly. Shalach Lei, Ravina said, no problem. Nesi Mar Shahadi, V'dichtav Ksava. Bring Eidim, let's write a star, and I'll be more than happy to lend you the money. Shalach Lei, Rabbi said, come on, Ravina, I feel no. Not me, what, me, you don't trust. Shalach Lei, Kosikain Mar. I'm even more concerned about lending you money than anybody else. You know why? The Torah Begir say, since you're around the ton of learning, mishtali, you can easily forget, and then I'm going to collect from you, and I'll be condemned from collecting from you. How dare you accuse Ravashi of owing you money? So he was try testing him through. Ravina's takamakbut on everything that we learn. I have a more shtickle from Rabbi Shmuel Bernstein about this, but let's finish the paragraph. There are 3 people that if they cry to Hashem, they don't get answered. Somebody who has mois and they lend it without edim, and it doesn't mean he cries to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Rashi is beferish. It means he cries to Bezdin, and Bezdin can't help him because he doesn't have a star. So it's not to the Rebbeinu Shalom. They cause it because they lent money without a proper star. We will see what that means shortly. And if a person has a wife who rules over him, he can cry till the cows come home. He's out of luck. I hear. It means what it means is he wants to lend for ribbis. So what does he do? He says that they belong to the goyim, or if he's not for ribbis, he doesn't want people to know he's rich. So he tries to make it look like he belongs to the goy. What's going to happen? The guy's going to get him on a recording saying it's not mine, it's the guy's, and then the guy's going to use that recording to steal the nechasim that he claimed belonged to the guy. So once again, they could scream in Bezdin, but they have his proof. They have a recording. Ikad Amri, Hakoshev nechasav labanav b'chayo. Somebody who in his lifetime writes over all of his nechasim to his children in his lifetime. But there's many examples of that, and then their kids rapachka the money, and they don't listen to their parents as to how they should be dealt with. Ikad Amri. But there are those who say the bishlei b'hamasel. Let's say things are not going your way here. There's a rule, mishana makom, mishana mazel. So he should pick himself up and relocate. Maybe it will be better. But and there are those who learn it's the opposite as well. If things are going good, Don't look for things better. Live good enough alone. Don't change, because moving sometimes can cause trouble. So those are the three people that if they cry the best, and they're not going to get any type of relief. Baruch Hashem, we were zoiche to finish the 5th parak, and B'lineder, Hadin Allah Chazon Neshach, Hadin Allah Chazon Neshach, Hadin Allah Chazon Neshach. So now I just want to share with you a fascinating shtickle that Rabbi Bornstein shared on what he calls raid bites, little shtickle on it. So he's talking over here about Ravina and Ravashi, where Ravina said to Ravashi, I don't care who you are, but you're a Talmud Chacham, you're Rangetan learning, you're going to forget, I can't lend you money unless we write up a star. So there's a Gemara, I believe it's in Soited of Tes, if I remember correctly, that says the following story. Reish Lakish was in the river, and he needed a little bit of help getting out of the river. So Rabbi Bar Chana stretched out his hand to help pull him out of the river. So how did Reish Lakish thank Rabbi Bar Chana? He told him, God hates you. Thank you so much, I love you. How are you talking? So he explained himself. You're from Bavel. And when we know there's no Ashrosh Shechina in the second Beis Hamikdash, the reason for it is when the Chagai Zechariah Malachi came with a small entourage of Eden to build the Beis Hamikdash, Roy the Eden didn't want to come back. So therefore, the Beis Hamikdash did not have Ashrosh Shechina because it wasn't built by Rabbi Yisrael, and that's why I said those lines. That's the story. Frank the Gemara, how is it possible that Reish Lakish would even speak to Rabbi Bar Chana? Do you know that Reish Lakish wouldn't even speak to Rabbi Lazar? Rabbi Lazar was the great of the generation. And Rabbi Yisrael wouldn't talk to him. You know why Reish Lakish wouldn't talk to him? Because it was known that if anybody saw Reish Lakish speaking to somebody, you could lend that guy money without a star. Because Reish Lakish was so discriminating about who he spoke to, he only spoke to people who were so honest that you could trust the guy blindly. And you wouldn't talk to Rabbi Lazar. So you could talk to Rabbi Bar Chana. There's no way Reish Lakish would have spoken to Rabbi Bar Chana. So the Gemara says you're right. There's a mistake. It must be that there's someone else involved. There's a Marzudra. So it for sure wasn't Reish Lakish talking directly to Rabbi Bar Chana. But now the question arises is, Reish Lakish wouldn't talk to Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar was the God Lador, and if he wouldn't talk to him, would he consider him a Ganit? How you talking? Right? So he said over with Shem, somebody, I don't remember who, but he said over beautifully. This Gemara answers the riddle. There's no chash that Rabbi Lazar is a crook. The Gemara said Rabbi Lazar was so orangutan and learning that you would often find him in the Shuk HaTachton, I think of Tzipori, Haravin and learning, but he left his jacket, because he was orangutan learning, he left his jacket in the Shuk HaElin of Tzipori. You would often find him without his jacket because he left it somewhere else because he was orangutan learning. So Rabbi Lazar was someone who was so orangutan learning, it's very possible that he would forget. So that's what we see from this Gemara over here. What we see from this Gemara over here is it's not a problem that he's a Ganit. About the time he's a Ganit. But Lamaisi, he saw orangutan learning that he might forget. And that could be the reason. And that's what you see from here, from Ravina and Ravashi. Because think about it. Of course, Ravina would trash Ravashi. The whole part is that since he's orangutan learning, he might forget. And that's where we have this Allah. There's one more part of the shtickle that I forgot, but that's the basic gist of how it works. And then there's the Rashash story. The very famous story with the Rashash. The Rashash was a very wealthy guy. He was a banker. He used to always lend money. And he had a book like Mr. Sarachevsky. So it's the same Bava and Deibich, right? The Tulis. And what happened was one day the Rashash is looking through his books and he sees that Moshe Pipik owes him money. So he goes over to Moshe Pipik. He says, "Uncle, I lent you $1,000. Can you pay me back?" So this Balabos turns back and says, "Rov, the time tells him, could you give me my money? Because I paid you back. Didn't you remember? I came into your study and I gave you the money." So the Rashash says, "Listen, I'm an organized guy. I know what I'm doing. If you would have given me the money, I would have recorded it. I have no record of it." It's a major problem. So could you imagine already the rumors that were circulating in that city? They ganev, they prosta ganev, the ruhat and the like held, and yet like into the soup. What does he think he is? An Rebbe Sheinagel? Right? With a chutzpah. So what happens? The Rashash told him, "Listen, I'm going to mon you in din. You're a koy for a kol. You're going to have to make a shvuah." So he came. He had no choice. He didn't have the money, so he made a shvuah. That's it. This guy wasn't chayyim. He didn't get a liyas. Nobody talked to him. No one would do business with him. He became a total outcast. Why? Because not only did he steal money from the rabbi, he swore l'sheker. It's unbelievable. So what happens? Every year the Rashash would finish Shas. And one day he gets up to Megillah Chav Beis at Beis, and I don't know if that's a daf, and he sees the cash there, and he chapped. The guy brought it to me in the middle of learning. I didn't record it. It was the middle of learning. I sticked it into my Gemara, and when I finished learning, I forgot to write it down. So now the Rashash felt so bad because he destroyed this guy's life. So he runs over to the guy and says, I got to ask you, Mechila, I'm so sorry. He's not going to pay me. I found the money. So he says, Rabbi, I'm not going to. But what are we going to do now? My life is completely and utterly ruined. So Rashash says, no, I'm going to get up tonight, and then we stand up at a beamer, and I'm going to clap and hear a boy's eye. I want everybody to know he paid me back, and I found it in the Gemara, and the whole thing was checked with the Chazan, and I'm so sorry. So the Yid says, that's not going to help me. Because what does everybody can say? Wow, the Rashash is such a tzaddik. After the guy stole from him, and he swore, he feels bad for him, so he's taking the blame for it. It's not going to help me. The Rashash said, I have an idea. You have a son, I have a daughter, or vice versa. Let's be Meshadach. If I'm Meshadach with you, there's no greater vote of confidence in that. And they did the Shidduch on there. So the Reb Chaim Brisker commented on this story. What would everybody say? What do you see from the story? You see the Galus of the Rashash. He could have done the biggest Kanak Shidduch in the world. He was the Rashash himself, and he settled for some Pusha the Balabus. Why? Because of the story. Dr. Chaim Dish does that for the Maisa. In this Maisa, you see the Galus of the Rebbeinu Shalom. What the Rebbeinu Shalom, how he turns the world over to bring a Shidduch together.
Josh was so great. People a lot less than him that don't go after people.
Yeah.
You know?
It's
The whole story.
It's like the story with the closing of the Rebbe. You know the story with the closing of the Rebbe? He had a very big problem doing Rebbe Sheshaduch because he had to faher his son-in-law on like 300 blot by heart. Otherwise he wouldn't take him as an Edom. So that automatically excluded most of the Rebbe Shekinder, right? So he took regular Balabat Shekinder. And the Hasidim weren't excited about it because you don't normally you have a chasna, two big Rebbes, two big dynasties. By him, it was a Rebbe, Balabus. One day, he took as an item a son of a plumber. And the Balabatim felt, Rabbi, you don't have to take Rebbe Sheinigel, but you take a plumber, come on, it's not a shidduch, you can't do such a thing. So he was very optimistic. The close of the Rebbe says, Avos pasnit. He says, it's a plumber. No, what Avos is a machpanosa. So he says, a guy took him jeans. A guy took him in jeans. So the Rebbe says, jeans is shotness? Jeans is shotness? Like totally didn't mean anything to him.
He didn't tell me to Santa Mass, and it's the government that the money schlecht. Wenn der Klausen begrenzt, die jetzt die gibt in Barba, Kasten gehabt mit der Linz zurückstachte. Sie kommen auf gute Nacht, was ich weiß nicht, was rum mit meinem Mann. Sie ist was ist. Der gar nicht in Bett. Ich kann mich Tati im Bett. Vielleicht kannst du mal mit bei den Eigen. Das ist
That's like the story with Yisrael Newman. Yisrael Newman, after the first night Sheva Brachas, he decided he's not going to tell. Later, come home early. He came home at midnight. He walks into the house, first night Sheva Brachas. His wife says, "What are you doing here?" Just a bottle I married. And he turned around. He left, never came back. He says, "Nachalent." What?
never came back.
Whatever.